You know, for the longest time, we've all been told that intelligence is genetic. It's this fixed thing you're born with, and you're pretty much stuck with what you've got. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? What if the smartest people in history weren't simply born that way?
So yeah, that's the big question, right? Is it something you're born with? This question is at the very heart of everything we're about to uncover. We're going to challenge this old assumption with some stories from history that might actually surprise you.
I mean, think about these names. They're practically synonyms for genius. And yet, Einstein's own teachers thought he was slow. Charles Darwin? Just a totally average student who absolutely hated memorizing stuff. And Thomas Edison? He was literally expelled from school because they said he was unteachable. These guys went on to completely reshape our world. So what gives?
Well, it turns out it wasn't some magic in their genes or a special school they went to. It was their habits. They each developed these systems that physically actually changed how their brains worked. And here's the really cool part. Modern neuroscience is finally catching up and proving why these systems are so incredibly powerful.
So, here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start by busting that myth of the fixed IQ. Then we'll get into how to rewire your brain, build up your intellectual toolkit, train your mind, and then finally put it all together into a real system.
All right, let's jump right in and start dismantling this old, outdated idea. Welcome to Section 1, the myth of fixed IQ.
Here's the bottom line from all the latest science. Intelligence isn't static, it's dynamic. The things you do every single day, your habits, have a much bigger impact on how smart you are than the genes you happen to be born with.
Okay, so if habits are the secret sauce, where do we even begin? That brings us to Section 2. We're going to get super practical with 2 foundational habits that literally start to rewire your brain.
You know, most of us think that getting smarter just means consuming more stuff, right? More videos, more articles, more podcasts. But that's a really passive process, and it only creates these weak, flimsy connections in your brain. Geniuses, they do the complete opposite. They engage in active, deep thinking. That's what builds strong neural pathways and leads to real, genuine understanding.
And there's some really cool science behind this. When you think without any new information coming in, you activate something called the default mode network. This is your brain's hub for big insights and creativity. Einstein was a master at this. He didn't just sit and calculate. He would walk for hours, all by himself, with no notes, just thinking.
So here it is, your first actionable habit. Take daily thinking walks. Just you and your thoughts. That means no phone, no music, no podcasts, no input. Now, I'll be honest, at first it's going to feel weird, maybe even a little boring. But that discomfort, that's the feeling of your intelligence actually growing.
The second habit for rewiring your brain is all about learning to embrace something called productive struggle. You know, getting an instant answer feels great. It feels productive, but that information just vanishes from your memory. It's the struggle, the trying, and the failing and trying again that actually forges those deep, lasting pathways in your brain.
Benjamin Franklin is a perfect example of this. He didn't just read stuff. He would read an essay, then put it away, and actively struggle to rewrite the whole thing from memory. Only after that mental workout would he go back and check the original. He was training his brain, not just filling it up with facts.
And here's how you can actually do this. The very next time you're stuck on a problem, force yourself to write down your best attempt at a solution, even if you know it's wrong, before you go look up the answer. Remember, struggle isn't a sign that you're not smart. It's the very mechanism that builds intelligence.
Okay, let's move on to Section 3. Now that we know how to start rewiring the brain's hardware, let's talk about upgrading the software. Let's talk about building your intellectual toolkit. For most of us, writing is for recording information we already know. But for geniuses, it's a tool to clarify their thinking. If you ever look at Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks, they aren't neat and tidy. They're this chaotic mess of questions and diagrams and ideas. He was literally thinking on the page.
And this leads us right into our third habit, a daily thinking journal. But this isn't a Dear Diary, here's what I did today kind of thing. Instead, you ask yourself 2 simple questions. What do I really understand about this topic, and what's still confusing me? This kind of active thinking through writing has been shown to just drastically improve how well you understand complex ideas.
All right, the next tool in the kit is all about how you connect ideas. See, geniuses don't just know a lot of facts in one little area. They build what the legendary investor Charlie Munger calls a latticework of mental models. These are just big, fundamental concepts from lots of different fields, and having this latticework is what creates real, flexible transfer intelligence.
So how do you even start building this? It's way simpler than it sounds. Each week, just try to learn one big idea from a field that's totally outside of your own. You're not trying to become an expert here. The whole point is to collect new lenses to see the world through, to see how a concept like adaptation from biology might apply to your business, or how incentives from economics explains your relationships. When these big ideas start to connect in your mind, that's where true creative problem solving happens.
Okay, now for section 4, training the mind. This brings us to a foundational skill that so many people mistake for a gift you're just born with, and that's memory.
Let's get one thing straight. Memory is not a talent. It's a skill you can train, and it's absolutely crucial for high-level thinking. I mean, think about Nikola Tesla. He could visualize and test entire complex machines in his mind. That came from deliberate memory training. The habit is simple, but it is so powerful. Always try to recall information from your memory before you review your notes. That act of active recall forces your brain to work, and it strengthens the neural connections way more than just passively rereading ever could. It's the difference between walking down a path and actually paving it.
So, we've gathered all the individual habits. But a pile of gears isn't a watch, right? So in our final section, we're going to see how all these pieces click together to form one cohesive, powerful system.
Now, this might be the most overlooked habit of them all. Smart people don't think all the time. They think intensely, and then they recover. Charles Darwin, for example, only did about 4 to 5 hours of focused work a day. The rest of his time was for walking and just letting his mind wander. Your brain doesn't upgrade during the hustle. It upgrades during recovery.
And this all brings us to the single most important point. Intelligence isn't something you chase with quick hacks and tricks. It's something you build, day by day, with a system of intentional habits. The greatest minds in history didn't just have smart brains. They built systems that allowed their intelligence to grow.
So, look, this isn't just about knowing some interesting stuff. It's about doing something with it. Looking at this playbook, you don't have to do everything all at once. The real question to leave you with is this: which one of these habits will you choose to build